Resourceful Designer, episode 84. You're more than a designer, you're a problem solver.
Welcome to the Resourceful Designer Podcast, offering solutions to streamline your graphic and web design business so you can get back to designing. And now, your host. He broke his collarbone the one and only time he went skiing, Mark DeCote.
Welcome to the podcast. I am so glad that you are joining me today as I discuss this very interesting topic to illustrate that you are more than just your skills and your knowledge as a designer. You also need to be a problem solver if you want to succeed. So that's the topic I'm going to share with you today. But to illustrate that, I want to share a conversation I had just earlier this week with a client. And the funny thing is this conversation happened after I had already set out the outline for this episode. I was already planning on talking about this. But earlier this week, I got an email from a client asking if I had time that afternoon to get on a Skype call with them. Now, this is a really good client, sent me lots of work over the years, been dealing with them for a long time. So I freed up some time in my afternoon and I responded sure, and we set up an appointment to get on Skype. Now, of course, what's going through my mind is what project is he going to send my way, because I always love working on his stuff. But when we got on the call, so the first thing he tells me when he answers the call is, thank you very much for accepting to talk to him. He's been going through some things with his business and contemplating some ideas, and he just wanted to bounce some ideas off me. He said he was running into some struggles, and I was the first person he thought of to ask for advice. And I realized early on in the conversation that he didn't have any design work for me. He just wanted to discuss his business with me. He needed a fresh pair of ears to talk about things. He was restructuring some of the services that he offered. He was eliminating some services, and he was thinking of bringing in some services, some new ones, as well as restructuring his prices, how he charged for the different things. And he wanted my advice because he valued our relationship enough that he wanted to discuss these real personal matters with me. And the only reason we were able to do this is because of the relationship that I had built with this client over the years. So like I've been saying ever since I first started this podcast, is relationships with your client are the key to your success. Without building good relationships, chances are your business will fail. Now, I just want to remind you as this episode goes along that anything I mention, any links I mention in this episode are available by visiting resourcefuldesigner.com/episode 84. Now, I'd like to share this week's resource of the week. And it's a blog post that I wrote on Resourceful Designer a little while ago called 21 Stock Image Sites That Every Designer Should Know About. And you can reach it by visiting resourcefuldesigner.com/stockimagesites, all one word. And it's simply what it states to be. As designers, we often are in need of using stock illustrations, stock photos, stock whatever, videos sometimes, whether it's for a completed job, maybe it's a placeholder, or just something you need for a presentation. And we do have our go-to sources for these stock images, but sometimes it's nice to branch out and find different varieties. So that's why I compiled this list of 21 different stock image sites. Some of them are free, some of them are paid for, but all of them offer quality images that you can use in your business. So if stock images are something that you use, whether on a regular basis or even infrequently, visit resourcefuldesigner.com/stockimagesite to see the list that I compiled of 21 sites you may be interested in. Now, I want to thank everyone who is supporting the podcast by being a Patreon. For as little as $1 a month, you can support the podcast as well. Simply visit resourcefuldesigner.com/Patreon, that's Patreon, and as I said, support the podcast for as little as $1 per month. And now our topic, you're more than a designer, you're a problem solver. You know what a yes man is? A yes man is exactly what it sounds like. You ask them something, they say yes. Well, as a designer, you cannot be a yes man. Although I do see many young and student designers doing just that. When they first start working, They so want to please their clients. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with pleasing your clients, but they so want to please the client that they listen to everything the client says and do exactly what they want. But the reason the client is coming to you is because they want your skills. They've hired you for your abilities, your knowledge, and your skills as a designer. They didn't come to you as a yes man. Now, there may be some clients that's exactly what they're looking for. But if you are trying to do this as a business, trust me, those are not the clients you want. You do not want the clients that tell you exactly, here, I want a logo. I want it to look exactly like this. I just need somebody to do it on the computer for me. Those are not the clients that you want because they're not the clients that are going to appreciate what you're capable of. You are much more than that as a designer. As the topic states, you are a problem solver. And what that means is when a client comes to you with an idea, you need to explain to them why their idea will or why their idea won't work. The clients might not realize that they're coming to you because they have a problem. They have a new business and they need a brand. The problem is they need some sort of image to be the face, the thing that people recognize about their brand. Maybe they have a product that they want to sell online. And the problem is they don't have a good sales funnel on their website. They don't necessarily see it as a problem, but that's what it actually is. Every project you work on as a designer is solving a problem for your clients. And sometimes those clients don't even know what the problem is they're coming to you with. And that's when you, as the designer, have to be able to offer ideas to them, solutions, alternatives even. You need to be comfortable in your abilities, be confident enough in your skills that you can pitch a client, pitch an idea in a completely different direction than what they originally intended. Because some clients have no idea what they want or what they need. As I said, they're coming to you for a solution, but they might not even know what the question is that they need a solution for. So you need to have the ability and the confidence to tell a client that, no, the idea you're going with is not going to work. But how about this idea? I recently had a client that was going to a trade show, and this was a last minute thing they needed to announce at the trade show. And he came to me and he says, Mark, why don't you design me a flyer? I need this thing to hand out so people will know about this new thing, this new item. And I told him that the flyer is not going to work. Most people that will be interested in that are not your existing clients, the people that would be stopping by your trade show booth. That only is of interest to people who don't know who you are, and they probably don't realize they need your services, so they might not stop by your booth. So having a flyer to hand out isn't the best option. You need some sort of banner that they can see as they're walking by the booth to attract them in. And if at that point you want to hand them out a flyer, that's great, but it's not the solution to your problem. The solution is getting the people into your trade show booth so they can ask you about that thing. And that was an idea the client had never thought of. They didn't think of putting a banner up in their booth specifically for that one small topic. And it worked wonders. After the trade show was over, and I asked them, because I always follow up with my clients, I've mentioned that before in the podcast, when something like this happens, they have a trade show, follow up with them afterwards and just ask them how things went. It's great for building customer relations. And they told me that they had a wonderful turnout at the trade show and that banner helped draw in a lot of people that told them they wouldn't have stopped at the booth if they hadn't seen that banner. So it just goes to show that you are a problem solver. Sometimes you may have an idea that the client never thought about because you are used to dealing with people in lots of different industries and such. If you're building a website for somebody and you've built 10, 20, 30, 50, 100 websites before, the client might ask for something, but you've built a website for somebody else, might be in a completely different industry, but you might be able to tell the client, hey, what about this idea? I did this on this other client's site. I think this will work really well on yours. And it's something the client never would have thought of. You are solving a problem the client didn't even know they had. So as you build this relationship, as you do good work for the client, you become their problem solver and not just their designer. And as you become their problem solver, you become invaluable to that client and possibly gain their loyalty for life. And just like that story that I told you at the beginning, where this client called me up or asked for this Skype conversation because he wanted to pass some ideas by me about his business that had nothing to do with design. It's just I had become his problem solver, and the relationship was built up enough with this client that he trusted me and trusted my opinion to guide him in this non-design way. Now, down the road, these new directions he's taken will probably result in some design work for me because he's introducing new pricing. So things have to change, that anything where his prices are. He's eliminating some services. He's adding some new services. So a lot of his design material will have to be updated. But that part never came up in that conversation. It wasn't the proper time. I was helping him get through a problem, and I was glad to be there for him. And that's the type of client you want to get as a designer. When you build up the relationship to the point where they can call you up and discuss anything about their business because you have become a trusted advisor to them, then as I said, you know you've got a client for life. So that's all I really wanted to talk about today. It's a short episode because there's not a whole lot to talk on this topic. It's just making sure you're aware that you are more than just a designer. You are a problem solver. And whether you're fresh out of school, maybe you're still in school, or you've been in this industry for a long time, it doesn't change anything. Clients are coming to you to solve a problem they have. So be there for them. Now, I would love to know, what sort of problems have you solved for your clients? Please visit resourcefuldesigner.com/episode 84 and leave a comment for this week's episode. And now, this week's question of the week. This week's question comes in from Joseph. Joseph writes, how do I introduce a design that I feel like a company really needs? He goes into a little bit of detail. He says, I went to a vegan restaurant and noticed their menus are homemade or crafted by Fiverr's finest. I really want to give them the menu they deserve and maybe even need. I'm a designer who's still in college pursuing my design degree. Hope that doesn't scream amateur, but I'm sure that's what you're thinking. I designed 2 example sheets that have blown my coworkers and instructors away. If you want, I'll send you the JPEGs. The problem is, this will be my first time pitching, and I usually just get a referral for work. So this is new to me. I'm not shy or nervous with people, but some tips to approach this would be great. Well, thank you very much for your question, Joseph. And first thing, right off the bat, before I actually get to your question, is no, just because you're a student does not automatically scream amateur to me. And I'm not thinking that. I have seen some students that are absolutely amazing designers. I have seen students that I am envious of because of their skills. So just because you're still in school doesn't mean you're not already an excellent designer. Not to mention that there are many excellent designers out there that never went to school. If you have the skill and the ability and the know-how to design well, it doesn't matter how much education you have. Okay, and now on to your question, Joseph. The best thing to do in this situation is to meet with them face to face. First of all, it's a lot harder for them to turn you down or to dismiss you just outright if you are face to face with them. But you also don't want to go in and kind of be the bully and say, well, your menus are no good and I can do a better job. What you do is you go in and you tell them that I've eaten at your restaurant. I think you guys are really good. I looked at your menus and I'm a graphic designer and I thought I'd ask if you guys need any help, maybe updating your menus or a more cohesive design, maybe something that fits in with the rest of the store, like a better branding or something like that. Anything to complement them, but still tell them that there's room for improvement. Now, you said that you're not shy or nervous with people, so that helps a lot. If you can go in and if you show confidence, that's one thing that is a big selling feature. If you go in and you show confidence, like I can help you without seeming cocky or overbearing, then it goes a long way in convincing them. If you go in and say, well, I think your menu could possibly use an update, well, they're not going to take you seriously that way. So you go in with confidence and you just try to sell your skills. Now, what you don't want to do is go in and tell them that you think their menu is bad because you don't know. Maybe they had their son or daughter design it for them. Maybe they had their brother do it. And by you telling them that you think it's bad, maybe you are insulting them, or possibly they did it themselves and they thought they did a really good job. So you don't want to go in and insult them. What you tell them is that you are a designer and you thought that you might offer your services in case they wanted to change or update things. That's always a good word, is update, not improve, but update things. And you leave it at that. Make sure you have a business card or something to leave with them, because they might not make the decision right there on the spot. They might take some time. It might be weeks. It might be months before they finally say, you know what? We do need to update the menus. Who's that guy? I've got a business card around here. This guy came in and offered services. Why don't we give him a call? Or they might just brush you off and say, no, thank you. In which case, just chalk it up to experience talking with a potential client. Never leave any sort of meeting like this feeling defeated, because whether you get the project from them or not, whether they hire you for anything, maybe you might go in saying about the menu and they don't want the menu done, but maybe there's some other project that they might have and they'll hire you for that. But even if they don't hire you, you are still gaining valuable experience, especially for somebody who's still in school. This is valuable experience in dealing with a client. And that's something that you can never have too much of. So good luck, Joseph. I'll keep my fingers crossed for you that you do get the project. But either way, there's always going to be more clients down the road as well. So thank you very much for that question. Now, if you would like to submit a question for a future episode of the podcast, please visit resourcefuldesigner.com/feedback, where you can either type up a message there or attach an audio file question if you'd like, and I will try to answer it on a future episode of the podcast. Now, before I go, I'd like to share my latest iTunes review. This one comes in from Michaela Ann Smith from the USA. She says it's a must-listen podcast and amazing resource. Mark Decote does a phenomenal job, and I recommend his podcast to every creative I know. His episodes are concise, focused, packed full of good advice, and useful down-to-earth information. Mark really has a way to make you feel like he is speaking directly to his listeners. He shares his own personal experiences about what has worked for him and how he applies what he's talked about. But for me, what's even more valuable is when he talks about what didn't work and how he used that to improve. Everywhere I've been in the last 6 months, Mark Decote has been right there, talking in my ear and filling me with inspiration and motivation. Thank you for all you do. I love your podcast. Well, thank you very much for that, Michaela Ann Smith. It does mean a lot whenever I read anything like that. Now, to have your review read on a future episode of the podcast, simply visit resourcefuldesigner.com/iTunes, which will redirect you to the iTunes store where you can leave a review for the podcast. And don't forget, this week's resource of the week was the blog post I wrote, 21 stock image sites every designer should know about. And you can reach that by visiting resourcefuldesigner.com/stock image sites. So thank you very much for tuning into the podcast this week. Hope you got something out of it. And I hope you go out and become a problem solver for your clients. I am Mark Decote, wishing you all the best with your graphic design business. And as always, reminding you to stay creative.
Thanks for listening to the Resourceful Designer podcast at resourcefuldesigner.com.